Hey, gang. Dr. G, Imaginarium. I walked in like this because one of my subscribers actually made a joke, said I looked like I was wearing a bathrobe. It's a sweater, man. Calm down. Anyway, it's Mental Health Monday. So, continuing on the self esteem series that I started with how to improve your self esteem in under 10 minutes. Link's going to be in the description. Today, we're talking about social media, and it's a drug. Now, allow me to explain. There's a couple of things about social media I want to get into here, but ultimately, we're going to end, I hope, on a positive note about this, because I know there's a lot of people that grumble and carry on about this stuff. But I want to try to provide you with a more even keeled view of this. Now, there are a couple of things that you may not know about social media that have been studied in the literature, and for those of you that are interested, I do get into this in a whole lot more detail in my upcoming book, A Jungian Analysis of Toxic Modern Society. Just to give you a kind of a taste of what's in there about social media, though, there's a couple of things that we need to be on guard for. Okay, so for one, a person who exposes themselves to a lot of social media is under a number of different influences as a result, at least the studies suggest. One of these is that they may find themselves under a lot of pressure to present themselves as blissfully happy and kind of living a perfect life. This is the sort of thing you tend to see on certain social media platforms more than others, like Instagram. On the other hand, you may also have a social media account which has people constantly talking about how down everything is and how miserable they are and how they need to go to therapy. And here, let me make another dark joke about my anxiety today. This is more what you see on Facebook. So I don't think either one of those is really all that healthy. And while, yes, you may feel like you're immune to this sort of thing, I would suggest that you not get too confident about that, and maybe practice a little bit of reflection about this, because I think it can be very influencing overall. If you're presented with this constant stream of everyone so blissfully happy and amazing and their life is so stupendous, then you're going to feel like your life doesn't measure up. And so that's going to be a reason for you to start feeling bad about yourself or cause a dip in your self-esteem. On the other hand, if everyone else is miserable, you're going to start picking up on a negative worldview. So kind of paradoxically, both extremes are bad for us. Shocking, right? So that's one way in which social media can subtly influence you in such a way that leads us to more of a negative state. Another one is that it promotes hyper-individualism. Because you get these tailor-made views just for you, that the algorithm comes up with, it can have an effect in which it's separating you from your surrounding community and extended family and friends network and stuff. And this is something that is also complained about by a number of different researchers in this subject. Well, complain about is not necessarily the right word. They're just making an observation that this is a problem. For example, there's a researcher that I talk about in the book named Twenge is the last name of her this researcher. And she found with her group that school loneliness, when they studied adolescents in school, that increased with greater student access to smartphones. And this was even if you were controlling for things like unemployment, family size, income, things that would potentially bring loneliness up. But this was controlling for that. Even still, you had worsening of loneliness when you had more social media access, more smartphone access, and so forth. Now, some of this research targets smartphones in general, and that's really kind of a slightly separate subject, zeroing in more on the social media aspect of it, because I think it's a big contributor, but it's not the only thing. Okay, so another thing that social media can do is it disrupts us from social interactions. Smartphones in general kind of do this, but social media in particular, you're engaging with people on a social level and communicating with them while not actually engaging with people that are physically around. Now, you may have good reason for that. You may have all kinds of excuses for why you want to do that. That's fine, but just know what you're doing, okay? Um, Another thing that smartphones in general and social media definitely both do is to create exclusionary cultures and echo chambers. Both of these are groups of people that just sort of coalesce together because of the algorithms and all that involved, and they eventually gets to this point where there's an official sort of party line, and you can't step outside of that. And if you're excluded from this, it can really mess you up emotionally. I've seen this happen in a lot of patients who are already in sort of a vulnerable state because of our hyper individualistic culture. They get involved in this social media stuff, and it can be devastating, particularly for our younger folks. Girls in particular can be really vulnerable to this sort of social exclusion, and cyberbullying can be a big problem as well, all created by the great gift of social media. So what else? What else? Another problem is that as you as you get more and more involved in these sorts of exchanges on social media where you're worrying about who is saying what, and you get it, people getting, it's a cliche now, people getting involved in arguments with strangers on the internet. um, we've only got so much time and energy during the day, and if you spend a whole lot of time doing that, you're not doing what's really going to be much more nourishing for you, which is engaging in physical, in at least face to face, or at least voice, with a phone interaction. Okay, so now you may ask, what what are the reasons that I'm calling this a drug, though? Is it really a fair analogy to say that? And I think it is, and here's why. Social connections, if you just look at the neuroscience of it, involves mainly the opiate systems. There's a couple of other systems involved here, like oxytocin and desmopressin, but for the most part, it's an opiate related system. Our social connection neurobiological systems evolved from our pain mechanisms. And what this means is that they are tightly connected, and being socially ostracized or feeling like you're disconnected and alone basically triggers pain systems. So the adage that you hear, or maybe cliched song lyrics about how loneliness is so painful, it's not a metaphor, really. It's actually physically painful. So, all right. So what? Well, opiates like heroin, for example, are highly potent opiate receptor binders. And so when people use them, and a lot of times in popular discourse about drugs, people will use this really vague terminology, and they'll say that the drug artificially stimulates the reward center. Okay, but that doesn't really explain anything, because number one, we don't really have a reward center. All right, we have a whole lot of different emotional systems that all have various goals and so-called rewards in mind. So it's not like you touch this one part of the brain and you're just like, oh, pleasure. No, we have systems that are oriented towards achieving particular species goals. And in the case of the social networking and social connections and attachments, we have, again, specific systems, many of which are mediated heavily by the opiate system. If you artificially stimulate that, then what you're doing is you're telling your brain that you're meeting that need for social connection that is so strong in human beings. The reason why it's so strong is because we're social animals. We bet all of our money on that, in terms of evolution, on that strategy of working together as a team. And what emotionally motivates that is essentially the avoidance of loneliness on one hand, and the feeling of very satisfying human connections on the other hand. So we've got both the carrot and the stick in our brain. And what you're doing is you're basically just stimulating the carrot of this with heroin. Okay. Now, why is that so bad? Well, the reason is because they only temporarily satisfy this innate craving for human connection without actually giving you human connection. So it's only one piece of what you're really craving, and the body is set up to want more than just that. Only the rest of it, that context that surrounds it, is not necessarily as strong as the opiate piece of it. In other words, what I'm trying to say is your body knows that you're not really getting what it needs. in the sense that you'll still feel the loneliness, especially when the opiates wear off, only it'll be way worse because the drug is keeping you from getting what it's actually evolutionarily oriented to satisfy itself with, which is face-to-face human connection and real world bonding and belonging and all that kind of stuff. That's what we were really wanting. So those things are satisfied by real world face-to-face interaction, because with that you get not just the verbal exchange that you would say in a text or a message on Facebook, but you get the physical reality of their presence. You hear their voice, you see them. There may be pheromones going on, in the case of intimate connections, or who knows what. There's a whole lot that we don't know about this. And I think basically that you can say that when those things aren't getting satisfied, but the opiate system is just getting slammed anyway, that's when you create the situation where you're going to keep chasing that, and the rest of your body is wasting away. And this you certainly see in heroin addicts and other drugs, meth addicts. They will pursue the drug and starve themselves to the point of serious health problems. Now, what I think is going on with social media is a little more insidious than that, in the sense that you're not really starving yourself, like literally not starving your body, but you're starving your social instincts that are very, very powerful. And when you're under the influence of the drug and it's triggering those bursts of opiates, endogenous opiates, you're not aware of the things that are continually starving that you're not getting access to. And then once it's over with, you're just hungrier than you were before, metaphorically speaking. Now, I can already hear some very clever individuals out there saying, but Dr. G, you're on social media, you're here talking about how bad it is and you use it yourself. Therefore, you must be wrong. Okay, yes, you're very clever. Thank you for that. No kidding. Now, the point I'm trying to make is not to give up all social media forever. That will work. But rather what I'm arguing for something a little more nuanced than that. I'm saying if you're going to use it, right, use it sparingly and wisely. Use it, for example, to lead to nurturing connections. Use it to reconnect to people you haven't talked to in a long time, and then go from there. Don't just be satisfied with the drug. Instead, go find this person, have lunch, whatever it is. Okay. Reconnect with family members that have moved away, say. Those are really great ways of using social media. Those are the ways in which it can be used as a tool that doesn't just lead to addictions. On the other hand, if you find yourself scrolling through these various platforms for minutes to hours on end, which some people really do this, without ever really talking to anybody, then you might be hooked. Okay, so that's the real thing that you need to worry about. Are you just artificially stimulating the need for connection and belonging and social connection, but then you're really just distracting yourself from actually getting that need fulfilled? Question for you guys now. What I've suggested one way, or what other ways might we be able to use this technology, which is never going to go away at this point, in a healthy way? So like, share, subscribe, comment below the answer to that question. Visit ericgoodwyn.com. The link is in the description as well for free exclusive content. Get on my newsletter so you can be informed of all the new stuff I'm coming out with. I got a lot of cool stuff coming down the pike. The cover and the book trailer are available on the website for my new book that's coming out soon. And pretty soon after that, you're going to be hearing about my upcoming fantasy novel. So that's what I got for you today on this Mental Health Monday. I'll see you next time.